quickly, we are going to review what we have talked about so far in our story. So in our story, and I don't have my book, we our story takes place in New York City, and it takes place, let's see. There we go. It takes place in New York City with our two main characters. Okay. The young lady, Gwen, who is 17 years old, is from West Virginia. Okay. So she has moved from West Virginia to live with her grandfather in the big city. Okay. In New York City, Gwen and her grandfather live in a brownstone. It kind of reminds you of some type of apartment or duplex where you have multiple people. In a duplex, it's usually two homes that are connected as one. So this is very similar to how a brownstone is. And in some cases, brownstones are what we call single family homes, where you have one family living in them. In this case, Mr. And I can't think of his name, Gwen's grandfather actually has 4 apartments in this one brownstone. So he has separate apartments on each level, and he does rent out 1 or 2 of those apartments. Okay. So we are just recapping what has happened. All right. So she's from West Virginia. Gwen plays the violin. She is a violinist. Okay. So this is a young lady similar to the same age as Gwen, and she is playing the violin. I'm going to go get my book. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry. See, I take notes in my book. I write in my book. I write all over in my book. So I have notes. So Gwen is 17. She is in high school, but she goes to a special high school where her focus in this particular school is music. And she is what we call a violinist who studies, and she is learning about classical music. And on this screen, you see multiple people who are what we call composers. They have wrote music, classical music. So some composers you may know today, if my husband was here, he could tell me a composer. Mariah Carey writes music. Okay. She may not, she would be considered a composer because she writes music. So these are some examples of some classical music composers. All right. Some vocabulary words that we may come across. You will see in this story that there are a lot of music vocabulary words in this story. Okay. Some of them are very hard to say or pronounce. Okay. So classical music is European and American music of more serious kind. And I want to actually play some for you. I have a link in here. Let's see. Classical music. So this is kind of what classical music sounds like. And it's going to take forever to load because I want it to play. Let's see. We'll do this. We'll close that one out. We'll do this one.
Grammarly Business features the same premium writing suggestions millions of individuals know and deliver.
Right. You hear piano, you'll hear some violin. Classical music can be very emotional and very moody. When my children were babies, when they went to sleep, I would play classical music. There has been research that says classical music, when you listen to it, it helps with brain, like their brain growth. So you may have heard of Mozart or Beethoven or Bach. Those are some examples of classical music. An example of classical music. So you may have heard of classical music before. All right. So here are some music terms: caprice, sonatas. These are different terminology that you will hear, and they relate to music. All right. In our story, Gwen has a large library in her home. The library used to belong to her grandmother who passed away. And in the library, her grandmother had lots and lots of books. And Gwen would go into the library and read some of these books. A lot of the books that Gwen read were older books. They were written years and years ago, and they kind of put you in that time frame of when classical music was very much a part of what people listened to. So some books that she read was Pride and Justice, Wuthering Heights, and Lord Jim. So these are some examples of books that she would read from her grandmother's library. Okay. So in chapter 1, in the beginning of the story, we have Gwen doing what we call a flashback. She is remembering what happened in the past in her childhood. And in her head, it reminds her of a DVD player where she is fast forwarding and rewinding things that happened in her life in her past. Okay. During this time, as Gwen is coming home from school, she goes into the house and she hears her grandpa and her Uncle Hank yelling. They're fighting. They're going back. Well, Uncle Hank is yelling. Grandpa is not. Uncle Hank was upset with Grandpa because he wants to sell Grandpa's house. But Grandpa does not want to sell his house. He loves his house, and he is determined to stay in his house. But Uncle Hank does not feel the same way. Okay. Gwen decides to go downstairs. She does not want to hear them yelling or Uncle Hank yelling. So she decides to go downstairs. When she goes downstairs, she changes her mind and she decides to leave the house and go to a cafe or coffee shop to read and have a cup of cocoa or hot chocolate. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So when Gwen gets back home, she realizes that Grandpa is no longer at home. He's not there. Grandpa has disappeared. and he leaves her a message on the answering machine. Okay. And I think the next couple of slides are blank because I was going to put Grandpa's letter in the slides. So I know the next slide is blank. Okay. So Grandpa, he doesn't leave her a note. He actually leaves her a message on the answering machine. In our book, in chapter 1, let me see. Oh, on page 8, Grandpa says he begins to speak. So what she does is she uses the answering machine to listen to Grandpa's message, okay? He says, "Hello, Gwenny. I hope you had a good day. There's no easy way to say this. I'm just going to tell you straight out. I need to go and stay somewhere else. For how long, I'm not sure. I know this is sudden, but I have to leave right now, today. And I have to ask you to do something for me. I want you to keep the house going for me while I'm away." This is a lot to ask. I'm on page 9, and I'm reading just Grandpa's part. This is a lot to ask, Gwenny. I know that. But it's the best I can do on short notice. I need to go right now, and I know you need to stay here. It's a hard situation, but we've both got to make the best of it. Now, this is important. Please don't tell anybody I've gone, especially Hank. I haven't changed my residence, but if he thinks I have, then he'll try to make something of it. Just steer clear of him, and please don't judge him too harshly. Hank's having a tough time right now. Even so, I don't want him taking it out on you. And I don't think we should let anybody know that a high school girl is living here all on her own. I know you'll be fine, and you know it too, but others might not see it that way. So it'll be best not to tell anybody for now. I know this is a lot to bite off, but if I didn't think you could do this for me, I wouldn't be asking, and I'm asking, and thank you." Grandpa coughs again and again. It's hard for me to listen, then he goes on. So when she says that Grandpa coughs, it gives you the impression or the idea that Grandpa could be sick. Okay, because we don't know what happened to him. He just leaves her a message on the answering machine saying that he has to leave. But it's like Grandpa knew he was going to leave, because listen to what he tells her next. "You know where I keep my ATM card, and you know the PIN number. There's money in the savings account if you need to transfer more. And I signed some checks on the black folder." So that means Grandpa thought and he planned to leave because he wrote out checks for her to send off to pay the bills. He said, "Second drawer of my desk. Gas and electric bills like that get paid straight from the bank. Can't say what you need checks for. Hard to know." So certain bills that Grandpa paid for comes automatically out of his bank account. He signed checks, so if she needed money to pay for things, all she had to do was write the amount on the check and give it to the person. And this is going to be very important as we continue to read. Can't say what you need checks for. Hard to know. But you treat that money like it's yours and get whatever you need. There ought to be enough to last you through this stretch. And when he says stretch, we don't know how long he's going to be gone. Well, I've got to get going. This business with Hank is tricky. So I'm going to tell you where I'm not going to tell you where I'm staying. Not just now. And it might be out of touch for a while, but don't worry. And that's an order. You just keep about your own business and leave all the worrying to me. I love you, Gwenny. Goodbye now. She says, I listened to Grandpa's message again and then a third time, trying to understand, trying to breathe slowly, trying not to shiver. And now I'm sitting at Grandpa's desk with one lamp burning. The street lights are on outside and a pale orange glow seeps through the tall front shutters. In this city of 10 million people, I am alone. How would you feel if you were a teenager and the adult that you were living with left you all by yourself and you didn't know where he or she was? How would you feel? Would anyone like to answer? How would you feel? Would you be scared? Would you be nervous? How would you feel? Miss Luz, how would you feel?
Me or the grandpa?
Yeah, you. If you were Gwen and you were 17, how would you feel if your grandpa left?
Like
Sad?
sad?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would be kind of scary, huh?
Yeah, because it's living 17 years, I don't know what me doing.
Right. Does anyone have 17-year-old children or teenagers, 15, 16, 17, 18?
Yeah, I have one. He's 16.
You have one, 16?
Yeah.
I have a 15-year-old and a 14-year-old.
Okay.
Can you
Yeah, my
imagine, Miss
16 and 9.
Gabriella, if you left your 16-year-old by themselves?
Yeah, I always tell them like if you are by yourself, you can ask somebody to if they can, borrow their phone, and you can call me or call your dad or call the police or stay in the place that it can be safe for them.
Ah, hold on one second.
Yeah, but I think they're very like kind of scared or
Yeah.
like like nervous.
Yeah, I would be nervous. I think they would be nervous.
Right.
Second. Speaking of children, my husband is texting me about my son. He's at band practice. And I forgot that they are not at the school. Let's see. I think they're at Terra Stadium. Okay. All right. I know my 15-year-old would probably be very, very nervous. Okay. So what I'm going to do for these next chapter 2, and we read part of chapter 2. If you miss reading chapter 2 last week, not a problem. I'm going to start chapter 2, and the goal is to read through chapter 3. That is the goal. So what I've done is sometimes I like to listen to the audio version of the book, because with some of these terms, where did it go? Here we go. With some of the terms, they may be hard, especially the music terms, to understand. So let's close this. Oh, there we go. Oh, don't want to do that. Chapter 2. All right, so we'll follow along.
Open the door to my rehearsal room, flip the light switch, and shut. I walk down more stairs to the basement. Open the door to my rehearsal.
Hold on, I'll just read, because it doesn't match. After I listened to Grandpa's message, my mind does not want to obey me. So I pointed toward the green hills and the warmth of West Virginia. Thinking of home always calms me down. And the first thing I picture is my two little sisters and my two big brothers, and my dad and my mom. Mama always says I am the brave one. I can see her face on the day I tell her I want to go study music in New York. Mama could never imagine leaving home. She and Daddy got married. He moved south so she could stay put, close to where she was born and raised. And when I tell her I want to go live with Grandpa, she is mystified, but not surprised. I am the brave one. For me, leaving West Virginia leaving West Virginia didn't feel brave, more like necessary. But it wasn't like I left all at once. I left molecule by molecule over a period of 4 years. So she's basically saying she left a little bit at a time before she moved. She moved a few small things here, a few small things there. Because when I started junior high, I liked Nickel Creek and the Charlie Daniels Band and the fiddle playing of Allison Krauss as much as the next kid. So these are various bands from West Virginia that she liked to listen to. But then I discovered Bach, and Bach, remember, is a classical composer, and Mozart, and the rest of the gang. And classical music began pulling me away from the mountains, away from the deep woods and the rushing streams, and finally away from my family and friends in West Virginia. I started out liking the fiddle, but I fell in love with the violin. And I can thank Mr. Richards for that, the music teacher at my junior high. He let me borrow some of his CDs. Artists like, and I cannot pronounce it, Ichark, Perriman, and Joshua Bell, and then Modor. And after 4 or 5 lessons with him, he convinced my parents I had some real talent. And then Mr. Richards helped me find a violin teacher in Charleston. And I was well and truly on my way, away from West Virginia. So by the time Grandpa offered me free room and board in New York, the change was almost complete. So Grandpa offered her to stay there without having to pay anything. So when we see free room and board, she got to live with Grandpa for free. I had to follow my new music. Mama understood, and so did Daddy. They didn't want to see me go, but they understood. Still, it wasn't bravery that pushed me north. It was more like a survival instinct. The mood was inescapable, but the journey wasn't without fear. So she felt called that she had to move in order to learn more about this new music that she has started to love, classical music. Okay. And even though she was willing to move, she's saying she still was afraid. Okay. And I think even as adults, we can remember, or even now, if we had to move to another city, to another state, that we would still have some fear. I know when I graduated college in Alabama. I was looking, Miss Luz?
No, sorry. Talking to my baby.
Oh, okay. When I graduated college and I was looking for teaching jobs, I did not want to be in Alabama. I wanted to move away, but I was also fearful or afraid to move. So when I moved to Georgia, I had an uncle that lived in Riverdale, actually across the street from Southern Regional in some apartments. And so even though I was away from my mom and my grandmother and my brothers, I still had someone in Georgia that I knew, my uncle. So almost similar to Gwen, when she moved from West Virginia to New York, I still had a family member that I could call on if I needed help. So even as adults, we get fearful. There is fear that's there, but we don't want that fear to stop us from pursuing our dreams. Okay. Like now, even coming to a book club, you may be fearful because you're like, my English is not the best. I don't know if everyone will be friendly or welcoming. We are. So this is a safe space for you to push yourself past those fears. Okay. I can admit, I don't speak Spanish at all, but I try to learn as much as I can. When I was a teacher, I learned enough Spanish to speak to my students that I helped in the classroom. So as I taught them English, they taught me Spanish. So even though I am not fluent in Spanish, I still will push myself to try to speak the language because I do want to learn. And the same way with you. You being here today, there may be some fear, but I'm glad that you have not allowed that fear to stop you. Don't ever let the fear stop you, okay?
Mhm.
All right. Even though it happened almost 2 years ago, the feelings are still with me. On that early August morning, when I take my seat in the bus and turn to wave goodbye to my family, I think this must be the hard part. Then 5 hours later, the bus goes across the state line into Pennsylvania. And I think, no, this is the hard part. I sleep and I wake just as the bus drives like a whale into the Lincoln Tunnel. And then it plunges up and out of the gray air of this into the gray air of the city. The Harpoon bus spins around and comes to a gasping stop on the floor of the Port Authority terminal. I climb out, Jonah with a suitcase. Have you ever heard of the story of Jonah and the whale? It is a story that's in the Bible.
Yes.
And in the story of Jonah and the whale, what happens to Jonah?
He got swallowed by the whale.
Yes, he gets swallowed by the whale. So she is describing the bus like a whale. And she is inside the bus, riding the bus, right? So because she is inside the bus, she compares herself to be Jonah. Like Jonah was inside the whale, she is inside the bus, okay? So she is Jonah with a suitcase and a cheap violin, okay? So here she is comparing herself to another story of Jonah and the whale. Okay, and sometimes authors do that to kind of paint the picture of how they are feeling in the story. And I glide down 4 escalators to the street, and I climb into a yellow taxi, and I zoom 60 blocks north through New York City, and I think this has to be the hard part. And then a week later, I go to my first day of classes at Latham Academy of the Performing Arts. And all the kids look at me and smile at my Charleston accent. So Charleston accent, so she kind of sounds country when she talks. If you've ever talked to anyone from New York City, you can tell that they talk different from people down in Georgia, okay? You may talk to your family back in your native country, and the way that you talk may sound different, and they may ask you, why do you sound like that? That means you've picked up not culture, but you've picked up colloquialisms or the way things are done in your area because you have been living in that area for so long, okay? And then I have to stand up and play a solo for our orchestra conductor. And I think, no, this must be the hard part. And it was hard because I hate soloing. When she says she hates soloing, she does not like playing her violin by herself. If you've ever sung in a choir or with a group of people and you are asked to sing a solo, you're singing all by yourself. And it can be very, very nervous. You could be very, very nervous because everyone is looking at you. So that's how Gwen feels as she is playing her violin in class. The only good thing is that once the other kids hear me play, no one cared how I talked anymore. All that is past a year ago last September. So she's lived with her grandfather for 1 year. And here I am still sitting at Grandpa's desk on Thursday today. I guess my mom is right. I don't frighten easily. But as the answering machine winds and rewinds at this moment, I do hope and pray that I have finally come to the hard part. And of course, I'm pretty sure I haven't. Grandpa and I don't talk much, but over the past year and a half, we've gotten used to each other. He has his routines and I have mine. I know he likes having me around. He doesn't say that out loud, but he's been so kind. Mostly little things, but some big ones too, like the practice room. That was huge. So I'm going to show you what a practice room may look like after we read this part. I've been here 2 weeks, and one morning he says there's a carpenter coming over to fix up a room in the basement for you. Grandpa says he didn't want to have to hear me playing all the time. And there was probably some truth to that, but it was more. It was a gift. So Grandpa has hired a carpenter, and a carpenter is someone who kind of fixes things around the house. They can build things. They can fix the rug. They can put down wood floors. They can add a closet in the home. They can maybe fix some electrical or plumbing that may need to be done. So this carpenter is taking a room in the basement and fixing it up just for Gwen. So when she goes to play music in this room, it is soundproof, meaning when she closed the door, Grandpa cannot hear her play the violin. So she can play all night long if she wants to. Okay, so she calls that her practice room. And this is a gift that Grandpa gives her. So he doesn't come out and tell Gwen that he loves her or that he cares about her, but he does it in a way that shows her that he does care. Okay, and some people are like that. Some people may not tell you that they love you or they care about you, but they may buy you flowers. They may take care of you. They may buy you gifts. They may hug you or show you that love and affection. So that is what Grandpa is doing here. He didn't want me staying up late at Latham. So he didn't want her staying out late playing at the school or in other places, or wasting time walking back and forth to the practice rooms at Manhattan School of Music. He wanted me to have a safe, quiet place to work. And he made sure the carpenter got everything just right. A gift. I have always felt Grandpa's presence in the next room, or down the hallway, or up a flight of stairs. We both like being alone, but we enjoy being alone together, the way toddlers like to sit side by side while they play in their own worlds. Sometimes I sit next to him and we watch Wheel of Fortune. Once he asked me to read him a chapter of Lord Jim out loud, and 2 or 3 nights a week, we have our bedtime snacks together. Simple moments, and I already miss that. Sitting here in this worn leather chair on this Thursday night, I'm trying to understand what Grandpa has asked me to do. He wants me to pretend he's still here. When we go on vacation, my dad hooks up timers to the lights. They turn on and then off, and then the house looks lived in. And Grandpa wants me to do that same thing here now. Because of Uncle Hank and this valuable building, that makes sense. I think I understand that part. So she's trying to understand why Grandpa would leave like he did. And it occurs to me that my grandfather might be asking me to break the law, because the law has a different word for pretending: fraud. And I have been to church enough to know that fraud is called in the Bible bearing false witness. Lawrence Page, that's our grandfather, my grandfather is asking me to lie for him. Have you ever been asked to lie for anyone? I have, by a friend, but I didn't do it. Okay, so her grandfather is basically asking her to lie for him. Okay, she says, if it were anyone else, I wouldn't even consider it. I can hear the gold wind-up clock ticking on the mantle. It feels too quiet for this time of night, so I walk into the parlor and turn on Grandpa's TV. CNN, that's his channel. The news is bad, but the sound of it is good. So she turns on the TV so she hears some type of sound in the house. If any of the people who live upstairs walk past the hallway door, it would sound like Lawrence, the landlord, is sitting in his easy chair, just like always. And so I tell my first lie for Grandpa. Okay, so remember, in the brownstone, Grandpa has people living upstairs. They pay him rent to live there. Okay, my cocoa and lemon cake have worn off. I go to the kitchen and fix myself a cheese omelet and then sit at the small dining table and eat. Omelet, toast, orange juice, milk, alone. Alone is not a problem for me. I couldn't count the hours I have spent alone. Alone in the woods, alone in my room, alone in the library, alone in a book, alone in my music. I'm comfortable alone, because being a classical musician isn't like sitting on the front porch playing the fiddle with a bunch of friends. It's more like a long hike on a lonely road. It's 95% solitary practice time, 2% instruction time. So she's saying that when you play the violin, a lot of times you do not play with other people, you play by yourself, alone. 2% rehearsal and 1% performance. Nothing is improvised. And if you're not a perfectionist, and if you don't like being on your own a lot, then you need to go and find yourself another road. And with such an intense schedule, there aren't a lot of opportunities for making friends or for meeting boys. There's just no time for that. At least not so far. Not for me. But maybe I'm only making excuses for not trying harder. So she's saying that because she practices so much, she doesn't have an opportunity to meet guys or meet boys. Because at 17, most 17-year-olds may have a boyfriend or a girlfriend. But Gwen does not, because she says she spends all of her time practicing her violin. Because I notice guys, and I've been known to smile at one now and then. I mean, I don't want to be on my own forever or living with my grandpa for the rest of my life. Not that there's any risk of that. But that thought brings back my worries, and I have to push away the fears about Grandpa. Okay. Any questions so far about what we have read? Okay. All right, we're good. All right, we're gonna keep going. But I did want to show you her practice room, and let's see if I can see
I
it.
have a question. What is the toad? Let's on the say, but that toad bring
What page, Miss
is
Lou?
L16. It's THOUGHT.
Oh, through. Hold on. You on
Oh,
page
it's
16?
true.
True. Pete,
Oh,
spell it again.
THOUGHT.
Oh, through. Or hold on.
It's true brings
T A.
back to my worries.
I think she's saying, but that thought brings back my worries.
Yes, I see it. But that thought brings back my worries. Yes, ma'am. Are we on page?
Oh,
Okay, hold on.
okay.
Let me find it.
True.
Because this is, oh, here it is, right here. Thought. Yes, ma'am. So she said, but that thought, so the thought she had in her brain. So it's like if you are outside talking to your neighbor and you thought,
Mm-hmm.
the thought comes in your head, oh, I have dinner on, so I need to get back in the house. So,
Oh, okay.
uh-huh,
Dog.
thought.
Okay, dog. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Good question. Thank you, whoever that was that helped me. So what she is doing is she is remembering about being alone for music, but then the fear of being alone because grandpa is not there makes her worry or makes her concerned. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Excuse me. And then I try to remember what I ought to do next, right now, tonight. With grandpa having trouble, it feels selfish to think about me, but I can't help it.
Your voice is doesn't your voice is like
It's going in and out. Can you hear me now?
como que sometimes I can hear you. Yeah, I can hear you.
You hear me now? Okay. I'll come closer or I'll push the computer closer. All right. With grandpa having trouble, it feels selfish to think about me, but I can't help it. I can't ignore what's going to happen in 5 days. I am crashing toward the end of my senior year in high school. So she is a senior. She is about to graduate high school. Okay. And this coming
Okay.
Tuesday, I have an audition at the Juilliard School. And then the next afternoon, an audition at Manhattan School of Music. And 2 days later, I have to be at the New England Conservatory in Boston. There are other auditions in mid-March, but Juilliard, Manhattan, and New England, those are my big 3, and they are soon. So it is Thursday in our story. It's Thursday night. And next Tuesday, she has to start auditioning for these music companies to go to college. So in order for her to get in to these schools, she has to go in front of them and play. And she has to be really good because a lot of kids are also trying to get into these schools. So she is worried that grandpa will not be back in time before her auditions. So now she has to worry about her auditions and worry about grandpa. So this is a lot to have on a 17-year-old child. The faculty members at these auditions won't want to hear me gush about how I've loved music since I was a little girl in the hills of West Virginia. They won't want me to tell them how I felt the first time I listened to Beethoven's Sixth Symphony, or how I wake up with melodies running through my head, and how thrilling it is to let the sounds in my mind rush across my fingertips and spray into the air the sounds, the air that surrounds my violin. They won't want me to talk at all. They only want to hear me play. I have practiced my violin thousands and thousands of hours during the past 10 years, And now my musical future depends on how well I play during these 3 auditions, 20 minutes each. And suddenly, this new complication, more pressure, is not what I need. But it's Thursday night, and I force myself to stay positive. I tell myself that with Grandpa away, things might actually be easier, because who's been doing all of the shopping and a lot of the cooking for the past 6 months? And who gets herself up and off to school every day? And who sets her own schedule and puts herself to bed each night? Does anyone wait up if I'm late at the Philharmonic or when I go get food with friends after rehearsals? So she's coming up with all of these reasons in her head why Grandpa being away might actually be a good thing. Because as she tells this story, she is the one who takes care of Grandpa for the most part. Even though he is the adult and she is living with him, she's actually taking care of him. She puts herself to sleep. She gets herself up in the morning. When she's comes home late, he's asleep. He doesn't stay up for her. She cooks their meals. So she's taking care of Grandpa. So she's like, this might actually be a good thing. Grandpa hasn't been taking care of me. More like the other way around. When he lets me, I have been mostly on my own in the city for a long time, and I've been worried about Grandpa for a long time too. I'll come in late from rehearsal, and he'll be under his fleece in that big recliner in front of the TV, looking so small and old, and I'll be afraid to shake him, afraid that he won't wake up. A knock, and I jump from my chair, so someone is knocking at the door. Uh-oh. A voice in the hall. You there, Lawrence? It's me, Jason. I can't move. So she hears this knock at the door and she's frozen. She's like, uh-oh, somebody's at the door. So it's Jason. A second knock. Lawrence? It's the tenant from the studio apartment at the back of the house on the 4th floor. I walk across the parlor, turn the deadbolt, and open the door 6 inches. So she opens the door and she peeks out. Hi, Jason. Grandpa's in the bathroom. Can I give him a message? Lying shouldn't be this easy. Jason's about 30. Short, dark hair, brown eyes, stocky build, white t-shirt and jeans. He's been eating garlic. She can tell he's been eating garlic because his breath stinks. Yeah, sure, Gwen. Just tell him that the ceiling leak I told him about earlier, it stopped. Maybe iced up or something, but it'll be back. So he needs to get a roofer over here. That's all. And tell him I mailed the envelope for him. A pause, a big smile then. So how's the music business? Your grandpa's so proud. Tells me about you all the time. He says you've got auditions coming up, right? So here he is, Jason's at the door. He has a problem in his apartment and he's telling Gwen about it. But then he remembers that Grandpa told him that Gwen plays the violin and she has auditions. I smile back. Next week. Good luck, okay? Thanks. Jason turns and heads for the stairs, and I shut and lock the door. And I'm a little surprised because Grandpa doesn't seem like he's that proud of me or even paying much attention. Of course, it could be me. Maybe I'm the one who's not noticing things. A leak? That means a repairman. So now she's starting to panic, okay? Because if she has to call a repairman, that is something usually adults do. So she says, and I have to be here to let him in so he can get to the roof through the metal lid at the end of the 4th floor hall. And I have to check over the work he does, and I have to pay him. All without Grandpa and without letting on that Grandpa isn't here. But it's Thursday evening, and I force myself to stop thinking about this. about all of it. I walk downstairs, I go to the ground floor, turning on lights as I go. I pick up my violin case. The roof has a leak and I need to deal with that. So it's like she's trying to go practice her violin, but as she's going downstairs, she remembers it's a leak. So it's like she's trying to still be a child, but she also knows that she has to take care of these adult things. Okay. Grandpa's gone and I need to deal with that. But more than anything else, I need to practice the Piaggetti, Caprice in B minor, number 2. And then Caprice number 17, 2. So Caprice number 17 is the name of the music that she has to practice. So these are the names of the songs that she has to practice. And then all the rest of my pieces. I don't just need to go into a good school. No, I need to audition so well that people will want to give me a scholarship, pay me to come to their school. Free room and board there with Grandpa has been a godsend, but I know it's temporary. Same as my scholarship at Latham. If I want to keep going forward, I need to make my own way. I walk down more stairs to the basement, open the door to my rehearsal room, flip on the light switch and shut myself in. I unzip the case and take out my violin. It's not actually mine. My own violin is in my bedroom closet. I've been told that it would make good kindling. So kindling is another word for firewood. So her violin is so old, she can pretty much burn it. It's not any good. But before we keep going, I want to show you an example of a practice room. Let's see. So we are in chapter 2. Okay. So here's a video to give you a visual example of Gwen possibly playing the violin. And the Latham Center for the Arts is an actual school in New York. So the author used a real location to put in his story. Okay. So Gwen's grandfather gives her a practice room. Now, her practice room probably doesn't look exactly like this, but it gives you an idea of a room where she can go in. You cannot hear any sounds outside of the room in the house. So she can play all night long as loud as she wants to, and Grandpa will never hear it. So remember, this is his gift to Gwen. Okay. And it sounds like, do you think Grandpa is very affectionate? Does he show Gwen that he loves and cares for her?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Does he say it or does he do it by his actions? Actions or does he say it?
These says?
He says it? No, he does it by his actions. So he doesn't tell Gwen that he loves her. He does things for her. So for example, he may buy her flowers. In this case, he built her a room in the house so she could practice. Okay.
Okay.
And he also tells his neighbor about his granddaughter.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That one, yeah.
We have an artist. So here's an example. I'm gonna close this blind in front of me. Oh, since it's dark. So here is a visual of Jason knocking on the door looking for Grandpa and Gwen opening the door. She doesn't open it all the way, but just enough to talk to Jason. Okay. All right, so in this next part, Gwen is going to describe and talk about her playing music. So we're gonna go back to our book. Any questions so far? All right, we're gonna keep reading.
No.
No? Okay. This violin in my hands is on loan from the school, provided to a promising student. which means loan to a kid whose parents can't spend $20,000 or $30,000 on a good instrument. So the violin that she is playing is not hers. She is borrowing it from the school. With the right care, a good violin will live forever. And if a violin gets dropped or comes unglued, a specialist can why I can't say that. I can't even say it. Rescrew it. I know
Resurrected.
Resurrect. Resurrected. Do we know what resurrect means?
Bring them alive again.
Bring back from the dead. So that's what, there we go. Resurrected. That's what I wanted to do. Bring it back from the dead. I didn't know that. I didn't know that you could fix a violin like that. I don't play any instruments at all. So that's new for me. Excuse me. This one was made in Italy in 1883. Dozens of other musicians have used this violin, and a lot of them are dead and gone. Someone else will be playing this violin long after I have died. It doesn't matter that I don't own it because I'm just the player of the moment. I borrow everything. Violin, music, air, water, this practice room, everything's on loan, and I have to prove that I deserve it. I lay the violin on the stool and get out the bow. So the bow, so you have the violin itself, and the bow is that long thing that they use to play on the strings of the violin. Okay. Also very expensive and also borrowed. I tighten the nut and rub the horsehairs across the resin a few times. Then I lay my mother's white silk handkerchief on the chin rest. So what she does is she takes her violin, she lays her mother's handkerchief over the top or the chin rest, and she starts playing, okay? When I have to play a solo piece like this caprice, sometimes it helps if I imagine a scene, because I don't like standing up in front of people and playing alone. I've never wanted to be a soloist. I guess it's the same shyness I've had since kindergarten. That's why I love the orchestra. I want to be nestled among the first violins, rows and rows of us. And there's me, almost invisible in my black concert dress. I want to play my part perfectly, but I don't want to be seen. As I play Caprice number 2, I imagine that I'm a serving maid and I have to carry a silver tray loaded with fine china from the kitchen all the way up a marble staircase. So here, I have a picture of what she is imagining in her head. So in her head, she imagines that she is a serving maid, okay? So this song that she is playing, here is the actual song. I found it on YouTube, so you can actually hear it.
When we first arrived at St. Jude, it was just
So this is the song that she is practicing in her room, okay? So I'm gonna play the song here in just a second, but I'm gonna also read to you, let me move it over here. I'm gonna read to you what she says she is envisioning as she is playing this song. So when we go back to the song, what I want you to do is to kind of picture it in your head. So I'm gonna read it to you first, soon as I find my book. There we go. Okay. So she says, Move this. She says, as I play Caprice number 2, I imagine. So she's saying, so she closes her eyes and she visualizes this in her head. She says that I am a serving maid and I have to carry this tray loaded with fine china from the kitchen all the way up a marble staircase to the sitting room of a fussy old woman. Up the stairs, I hurry on tiny feet, but careful, because one false move will send me and the tray crashing down the steps. And then there's a call from below. Someone forgot the marmalade. And I turn quickly and balance the clinging china all the way back down. So as she is playing, I want you to listen and kind of imagine her carrying a tray, walking up the stairs, then walking back down the stairs. But she's very careful because on her tray, she has china and she doesn't want to drop it or drop any of the food that is on the tray. She says, I turn quickly and I balance the clinking china all the way back down. And then halfway, for a second time, a damask napkin flutters off the tray. So a napkin flies off the tray. And I have to turn around again. Up and down, each note a footstep. And so finally, every obstacle is overcome. And with a flourish, I sweep through the doorway of my lady's room and luncheon is served. So as we listen to this song, kind of picture her carrying a tray going up and down the stairs. It's really a pretty piece. All right, here we go. Very pretty, huh?
Yes,
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah. Could you imagine just how the music is playing? Gwen running up and down the steps.
Mhm.
Yes.
All right, so we're gonna keep reading. Let me bring my page. And I'm sorry, Miss Hernandez, I did not see your message when you were asking about the page number. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for helping each other out. Sometimes I get so excited about reading that I forget to check the chat. So I apologize, but I'm glad you are were able to ask someone. If for some reason we ever get lost, it's right here at the bottom of my screen. Can y'all see that?
Mhm.
It's very small though. But if you help each other out, I greatly appreciate it because sometimes, again, I get so caught up in reading. Okay. So she says, this caprice is killing me, meaning that it's very hard for her to play. More precisely, I'm killing it. So she's saying she's not doing a good job. Let me make sure I'm on the right screen. Can y'all see the book? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure.
Yes.
All right. So she said, this caprice is killing me. More precisely, I am killing this caprice, and it's sad. I know it's such beautiful music, fluid and elegant, and I know I'm not doing it justice, which is what my teacher demands. He's Russian and very dramatic. He'd make a good Jane Austen character. Yet, yesterday's lesson, Piaget, and I cannot say his last name, this is his name, and it is very hard to say. We're going to say Mr. P said, the composer begs you to keep him alive. When you play this capriccio, he stands behind you listening. So her teacher stands over her as she's playing, and he's like, he begs you, he's saying, you have to play the music to keep the composer alive. If your playing is weak, the composer weeps. So he's saying, like, if your playing is very bad, you make the composer cry. He mourns for himself. If you can't play his music, Piaget will die. Praise from your teacher is like water in the Sahara. And the Sahara is a desert. And in the Sahara, there's no water. So she's saying that if your teacher says, good job, well done, it's very, very rare that he would do that. One rare day, I played well, and he said, you have a gift, little one, the heart and the soul, a sip of praise. It keeps me trudging forward on this Thursday night with thousands of notes lift up in my mind, tiny stars in a desert sky. Okay. This caprice is less than 3 minutes long. My practice rule is simple. Play the whole piece from beginning to end. At any mistake, start over. So what she's saying is when she practices, every time she makes a mistake, she has to stop and start all over again until she gets it right. She says, at the end of an hour, I have played it through completely twice. So the song is only 3 minutes long, but she messes up so much. Within an hour, she only gets to play it from beginning to end twice. So Gwen is very dedicated, hardworking, and she is very hard on herself because she wants to be good. She wants to be perfect. So when she makes a mistake, she's going to practice it over and over and over again. Okay. My fingers and my bow have to dance with perfect grace across the same 4 strings. One false move and I've ruined the intonation, botched the rhythm, destroyed the dynamics, and choked the flow. And for my auditions, I have to play every note from memory. I have 2 more lessons before my audition, and that's good. This West Virginia girl needs all the help she can get. The second hour of the other caprice is better. Piaget is still on life support, but he's breathing. So she's basically saying the second song that she plays, she does okay. She didn't kill him or kill the composer from her terrible playing, okay? Perhaps tomorrow he'll be able to sit up and take some nourishment through a straw. So again, she's using these visuals in her story to give you a mental picture of how she is playing, okay? Then I spend an hour on my Bach Parata, and then I run through the first movement of Sibylline's concerto. And then it's time for food and rest. So she practices for 2 hours. She's in that room practicing and practicing and practicing for 2 hours. And then it's time for food and rest. She says, I'm an athlete, and this is my training camp. So she is comparing herself to someone who plays football or soccer or basketball. Athletes practice and practice and practice. She considers herself to be like an athlete. Those who play soccer, they have, in order to be good, they practice and practice and practice. So she wants to be good. So she has to practice over and over and over again. Walking up to the first floor, the house feels too still. I can still hear CNN, but it's only noise. And when I turn off the TV, the silence is complete. There's no traffic on 109th Street. And even if there was, the brick walls are 18 inches thick and all the windows are triple glazed. The upstairs tenants are quiet. I wish I could hear Grandpa snoring through his bedroom door. It's the perimeter secure? So Grandpa would ask her, is the perimeter secure? That's what Grandpa asked me every night. It's from his years in the Army. And after I check all the doors and windows, I report back, perimeter secure, sir. And then he salutes me every night until now. So after I've locked up, I toast some raisin bread and drink a glass of milk. When Grandpa joins me for an evening snack, he likes his milk warmed up, and he has a cookie or two, never toast. Cooking just for myself is going to be simpler. So I guess that's one good thing. Then I go to the study to turn off the desk lamp. I see the stack of mail from this afternoon, and I remember I have a letter from home. I carry it downstairs to my bedroom and lay it on my pillow. When I'm ready, I climb into bed, open the letter, lie down on my side, and begin to read. Yes, Manuel, thank you for raising your hand.
Excuse me, when are we going to finish?
I wanted to, we're on, let me see. We will read Mom's letter and then we'll stop. Okay?
Okay.
So we'll stop at this
Okay.
chapter. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. Would anyone like to read Mom's letter?
Can I read it?
1 second. Let me see if one of the other ladies wants to read. Okay, Manuel? Thank you.
Okay.
Would anyone like to read the letter to Gwendolyn?
I did it.
Okay, go ahead, Miss Luz. Now, Manuel, you read last week, okay? So I want someone else to read this week, all right? But thank you for volunteering.
Okay. You're welcome.
Dear Wendy, I was good to talk to you last Sunday. I said George Rubin, and he said he hands in the email for you. I keep a scheme for computer on my own about your fathers say we don't need one at home since he ready to go one at work. A lot of good that does when your sisters need to type their schoolwork. How the
Hi.
when hi your sister need to take oh no
You're
how
okay.
the time we you send oops message your dad forget to tell me and they I have to remind him 3 times to pray it and bring it home. And I have to say an email near a nice is a real letters in this mailbox. We are fine here except James is like his job at the garage. Boys and so
Shouldn't.
three to you say again?
Shouldn't.
Sure, three to work for day that is you ask me. What nobody ever does. I have to tell James a dozen times that will help him with calling costs. And I think he mean be starting to listen to me and he is about time. Herman, Estelle, and Rob, he's using and understand word started
Start.
word.
Mm-hmm.
I'm for a big insurance company in Charlotte, and he says he like it. He doesn't head home as often as I like about you know me. If I had my way, we don't just keep making this house bigger, and you call our life here with me forever. Sharon
Sharon.
being
Mm-hmm.
shared to being to 3 days with 3 different boys in the past month. I were about that child, but I don't think she's embarrassed nurse. Is a sorry. Near as a boy crazy, I want one. Sorry, my girl is crying.
Aw.
He's crazy about one couple time. Caroline saying a little more sensible, but she's still young. They getting
Get it.
getting
Uh-huh.
get straight up to. I give two shoes shoulders you send me in the wheel in the kitchen where I can see is it a very day in a pray that you are happy. I don't know how you can stay in that city except I know is where your music is. Your uncle Belden asked me again, is you when say him a recording of your playing? I thinking he has told every man, woman, child, and doing in the parents of the state that he's. They want who have your force feel.
Middle. Mm-hmm.
He is so proud at that. You know, he be happy when my little thing not right away. I know because of my college too, but it meant don't play that one. Um, the word to him. I going to bed now. You keep safe. He may know show is about I know. Grandpa pays love having you there as much I hate having you gone.
Mm-hmm.
He's been awfully, foully
Uh-huh.
good to you. So you say thank you every chance you get. I continue that days only June. You are always in my
Prayer,
prayers, no?
prayers. Uh-huh. Prayers.
With and my love mother.
Oh,
I
good
fold
job.
the I fold the letters and choose and with the honor in the dreams of my nightstand. I feel that about Uncle
Eldon. Mm-hmm.
building.
Mm-hmm.
I had to take the CD of my plans to send along with my college application, present, presenting,
Pre-screen.
presenting,
Pre-screen.
preskinning, preskinning,
Uh-huh.
just to get auditional. The school want to hear according force to see how the version to three out in the person. I could have burned an extra CD and sent into Uncle Building and should have, but I didn't. I
Mm-hmm.
done.
Uh-huh. Good job. You did a really good job. I'll read from here. Let me go back really quickly and then we'll wrap up.
Okay.
Schedule. I've got the schedule. Okay.
Mhm.
Schedule is like you have, so if your kids are in school and they have math, then reading, then science and social studies, that's the schedule. Or if you're at home, you wake up, you get dressed, you wake up the kids, you get the kids dressed, you feed them breakfast. That is a schedule. It's a list of all the things you need to do. Okay.
Okay.
Tryouts is another word. When you try out, so if you are playing soccer and there are a lot of people that want to play soccer, you come to try out. So you practice and show them your skills for them to pick the number of people they need for the soccer team. That's tryouts. And then there's
Okay.
one other word. Let me find as. That can be tricky because it sounds like you're saying a curse word. Isn't near as nice as a real letter in the mail. So that is as.
Okay. As
Uh-huh. There you go. All right. So I'll finish out. People here, I'm from West Virginia, and right away they think poverty and dirt floors and hog farms down in the holler. My folks are about 20 minutes outside of Charleston. And where we live, it's not like that. My dad has his own car repair business, and my mom finished 2 years at the junior college before she started her family. I guess we're middle class Americans. Still, every radio button in both the car and the pickup plays country. And not just because that's all there is to choose from. We don't have a lot of money, but we've never been poor. Now, my mom's family, they're poor. They live in the hills about 2 hours east. Not dirt floor poor, but pretty close. They live scruffy and would be hard to say how much money my dad's loaned them over the years. Hard to say. I mean, I'm certain that dad knows the penny. Uncle Belden is my mom's brother, and it's fair to say he's the reason I'm here in New York, even more than Mr. Richards. When I was little, we'd visit and he'd always play his fiddle. He had the magic and everyone listened, even Daddy. It's almost my earliest memory, sitting on my mom's lap, listening to that sound, and then wailing for more when it stopped. Belden knew. He told my mom, that Gwenny, she's got the music. You wait and see. Turns out we didn't have to wait long. I was 4 and Belden gave me a 1/4 size violin for Christmas. He put the tiny fiddle in my hands and showed me how to tuck it under my chin, how to hold the bow and scrape it back and forth across the strings. And to me, it all felt as natural as jumping in the creek on a hot afternoon. Every time we went up into the hills to visit, Belden and I would play for hours. We found the most amazing harmonies. And when I was 10, Belden declared, "This child knows more about fiddling than I do." And thinking of that simple time makes my eyes smart. But I blink hard to turn off the lamp. And I make myself promise to send Uncle Belden a CD. And I make myself stop wondering how Grandpa's doing and how I'm going to get the roof fixed. And I make myself stop worrying about my auditions. And then I make myself close my eyes and say a prayer and rest. And I make Thursday come to an end because I am the brave one. All right, so we are going to stop here at chapter 3, okay?